If you are a business owner and you own that business by yourself, here are 8 things that you need to do before you even accept a dollar from a customer. Number 1, you got to come up with a plan. The business plan is where you actually put your thoughts on paper. This is where we talk about what is the business concept, what is the purpose of the business, what is the mission, the values and things of that nature. Here's where we talk about the products or the services. What are your price points? Do you have any strategies in terms of promotions? Things like what happens if there's any challenges that arise in the business, and who is going to work in that business? Who's going to be the management staff? Who's going to be the actual employees? This is where you actually take your idea and put it on paper. Number 2, you want to make sure that that business has its own identity. Oftentimes, people always associate their personal information with that business right out the gate. You register that business with your home address, your home phone number, and all that good stuff, and that's the wrong thing to do. You need to give that business its own identity. You need to separate yourself from the business automatically. Number 3, after you get that business its own identity by getting it its own email, its own address, its own domain, you want to go to the Secretary of State and register that business, because the Secretary of State is a public database. You want to make sure that any information that you put into the Secretary of State has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the business. That's when you want to get your EIN number and you want to register that business as a corporation if you want that business to be seen as a separate entity. Remember, an LLC is only recognized by state statute. An LLC doesn't automatically separate you from the business. That's the biggest lie being told on social media. Step 4, you want to be able to give that business its own brand. What does that business look like outside of you, right? You want to make sure that that business has a website. You want to make sure that that business has a logo, something that's going to identify the business on its own. Step 5, now you want to go ahead and start the process of establishing business credit. You want to register with the Dun & Bradstreet. You want to register with Experian. You want to get you some Net 30 accounts. You want to get you some trade lines. Step 6, after you actually establish business credit, you want to make sure that you have a bookkeeping process in place. This is where you're going to track all of your expenses. And remember, stop using words like write off. That's not even on a tax return, right? You want to be able to track your expenses for the business. You want to make sure that you have a QuickBooks set up so that way you can connect your QuickBooks to your bank account, and your bank account will be able to show what's going on in the business. Step 7, you want to be able to go ahead and get some contracts set up with the business. And this is where you want to establish some credibility. You want to register with the Better Business Bureau, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. You want to register with SAM.gov. Now, what's interesting is when you register with SAM.gov, most people think that, you can just register with SAM.gov and get a government contract. But remember when I said you want to get that business its own identity in step 2? You want to make sure that business has its own address, because the business is going to have to be registered and verified by SAM.gov. And when SAM.gov actually registers your address, they're going to look for an address that's unique, that's not shared by a bunch of people. So a lot of times people try to go get, virtual addresses and PO boxes. That won't work when SAM.gov tries to give you a CAGE code. You need a CAGE code in order for SAM.gov to pay you should you be successful in getting a government contract, right? So you cannot get a CAGE code if you're using an address that's tied to other businesses. It won't work. Step 8, you want to go make sure that you protect that business. You want to make sure that you have some business insurance. You want to make sure that you register your trademark, any copyrights that you may have. And then you want to make sure that you establish a business trust. These are all the things that you need to do before you accept a dollar from a customer. And I know a lot of times when people saying, well, Dwayne, I already have a lot of these things. If you have these things registered as an LLC, that business is not separated from you. You need to register your business as a corporation because according to the Internal Revenue Service, a corporation is seen as a person. If you come across a lot of people that is telling you don't do it because of this and don't do it because of that, you want to make sure that they're giving you some sound advice. Typically, if you go ask an accountant and a CPA or a tax professional any advice on business, Unfortunately, their bias will allow them to give you advice based on a tax situation, not necessarily a legal separation situation. As a business consultant, excuse me, as you know, a business consultant, I help people understand all things that they need to do in the business from a 30,000-foot view, so that way you can understand what needs to happen in the business. Again, the first thing that you need to do is come up with a plan. Secondly, you need to make sure the business has its own identity. Third, you want to register that business with the Secretary of State. Fourth, you want to make sure that business has a brand. 5, make sure that you establish business credit. 6, make sure that you have some sort of bookkeeping process in place. 7, you want to go ahead and establish some business contracts and credibility. 8, you want to make sure that you have a business that is protected. I hope this information helps you. If you need any help with structuring your business, converting your business from an LLC to a corporation, anything, if you need help with taxes, please visit me at www.macenterpriseconsulting.com, and I will be more than happy to help you. Peace.